everyone. I am Karen Combs and welcome to FlossTube number, 17. I am taping this on July 13th, but I will probably upload it for Saturday, July 15th, and I want to welcome you. This is my YouTube channel where I talk about quilting and tips and tutorials, but this particular video is my FlossTube channel, and we are on FlossTube 17 already. I can't believe it. I feel really discombobulated right now because I've been setting up. I already taped one little close-up section that I'll insert in here, but I'm waiting on a phone call, which I'm just looking at the clock. I think I have enough time to tape. Before the phone call's scheduled, I may have to stop and come back, but you'll probably never know that. But so if I seem a little looking at the clock, it's because I am. But I want to thank you for joining me, and thank you for all of you that subscribed. We're up over 3,000 subscribers, 500 just in the last few days. So thank you so very much. I love reading your comments. Thank you for those. We're going to talk about a couple of them from last time, FlossTube 16. And if you have any comments on this one, please feel free to put it in. I try to answer them as they come in. Every once in a while I'll miss one and I'll go through and go, how did I miss that? But if I have missed it, say something to me. I'll go back and look, because sometimes things just appear. It's like, I thought I was all caught up. But anyway, I want to thank you for your comments in the past. I really enjoyed reading them, and thank you for joining me. So couple things from last video, just looking at my notes. Last video I talked about the difference in some of the Ver A Soie silks, and Lisa mentioned, I don't have my glasses on, so I'm trying to make sure I have the name. Lisa mentioned, I'll just say Lisa W, because I can't read my writing without my glasses. But Lisa W mentioned that Katie Strachan has an amazing 2-series videos, very in-depth on a Ver A Soie, and I had forgotten about that. So Lisa, thank you for reminding me of that. I will put the link to that in the description. It is excellent. I rewatched it, and it goes in depth about the different types of a Ver A Soie silk, how to use them, how they look when they're stitched. It's excellent, and of course all of Katie's videos are just amazing. But I will link to those particularly because we did have a question about those, and I did talk about that last time. So thank you, Lisa, for that. And I also had a question from Lorraine about how does a stitch along, or how does a sal work? And I thought that was a really good question, because sometimes we will just say, oh, this is my stitch along, or this is the sal, and we don't really explain it. And if you're new to stitching, or if you've heard that term, it's like, what is that? How does it work? So a stitch along, sometimes they're known as sals, from what I've seen, have been done in a couple of different ways. And again, in the comments, feel free to mention anything if I've forgotten, or if you're doing a stitch along in a little different way, please make sure to mention that. But I've seen a couple of stitch alongs. One has been very organized, and that's the one I'm doing with Hannah Campbell. That is in a Facebook group. Sherry is leading it. We have Kathy Ray, who's also doing some videos with that. There's tutorials. Kathy has been adding tutorials in there. Sherry's doing an amazing job with leading that. There's lots of comments, and this is all on a Facebook group that you have to join, but it's all there, so very organized. So sometimes stitch alongs will be very organized in a group with a leader, with kind of a deadline, or I shouldn't just say guideline, because it's not, nothing's going to happen if you don't finish in the deadline. So just kind of a guideline, just to help you keep going with it. Then I've also seen, I won't say unorganized, because that isn't what it is at all, maybe informal, a more informal stitch along, where a couple of friends will say, hey, how about we do this? And then they get others to join in, and there may be a hashtag that is usually on Instagram, where people will join in and they will put their progress with the hashtag so you can follow along. What I'm thinking about is Live on Little, which is another one I'm working on. And I'm not doing it as a stitch along, I just happened to see some of the posts that people have done the stitch along last year posted in it. It piqued my interest in it. So sometimes you will have formal, very organized, perhaps a Facebook group stitch along. Sometimes you will have an informal stitch along with people using a hashtag and people join in as they go along. So there's a couple of different ways that I've seen, and it could even be a stitch along you do just with your friends that you don't do online at all. So those are some of the stitch alongs I've seen. So that was an excellent question from Lorraine. Thank you for that. And I also had a question, and I don't think it was this video, wasn't 16, it might have been in 15. I did not write down which it was, but a question about pressing, because I did press some of my WIPs that I showed, and a WIP is work in progress. Did show that, and someone asked about how I'm pressing. So I wanted to show you, and I guess just because I'm a quilter, I didn't even think about it. I just used, oh, I'm gonna drop it. I did use my wool pressing mat. So this is mine. I have two sizes. This one is, I don't think it's like 12 by 12. And then I have a bigger one. So it is, this one's really old, but this one is 1/4 inch thick, 100% wool. And what happens when you use a wool mat is I put it on the ironing board because the heat, this is my bigger one that goes on the ironing board, the heat will be transferred through the wool and then it will come back up. So you're getting the back of your work heated or pressed as well as the top. So it's just a really good way to press. Now, if you're looking for a pressing mat, I'll put a link in the description, but you are looking for 100% wool. You want it 1/2 inch thick. And there's different brands out there. There's different sizes. This one, as you can see, is really big, goes on my ironing board. And then I have this smaller one that I've used for a very long time that's about 12 by 12. So either one, but I just want to caution you, do not put it on a wood surface like a table or a plastic surface like a table, because the heat goes through it. And if you set it on something and the heat goes through it, it could warp it. So I always set it on my ironing board, or if you want to set it next to you, say if you're sewing and working on a quilt block, set it on something that's heat resistant. So just a little caution. But what I did is when I pressed my linen, I used, I don't know if I used the linen setting on mine. My iron gets a little hot, so I might have gone down to the cotton setting. And then what I did is I pressed it, but I did my method, and I'll put a link, I'm gonna write that down, a link to my pressing video where I talk about pressing half square triangles, but it's the same method. I call it the hover method, where I'm hovering with the iron weight in my hand, hovering over the surface, drop it for just a second, lift it back up and move it. So I am not stretching the fabric, in this case the linen. I am not letting the heat in contact with the linen very long so it won't scorch. I'm using a dry iron, not steam, because I don't want anything to run, I don't want anything to stretch. So just a hot, dry iron, hover, drop, lift, hover, drop, lift. You'll see that in the video. So that's what I did with the wool mat to press it. So I guess I just didn't even think about it. I just did the same method that I use when I am ironing fabric or working on a quilt block. And I think that answers our questions. Just checking here. I've got, what have I been doing the last couple of weeks? Because what I'm going to do is show you what I've been working on, have a couple of shout outs to do, and a little bit of haul. And then in the middle of all that, I am going to put a video with the camera at a different angle, close up so you can see it, because we had some different questions, so I'll insert that in just a minute. But I wanted to show you what been doing, show you some pictures. Been working in the garden, and I haven't done any more canning because the tomatoes, they're coming in. I have some friends that are starting to can tomatoes. I like to wait till the end of July into August, even September, because the tomatoes are a little bit juicier. So I will probably wait another couple weeks. But I thought you might like to see, and it's just a little garden. This is my raised bed garden 3 months ago. I just got some lettuce and some sugar snap peas in there. You can see that's what it looked like 3 months ago, and this is on my Instagram too. You'll see it. This is what it looked like yesterday, exactly 3 months apart. So I've got tomatoes, zinnias, let's see, the carrots are gone, sugar snap peas are gone, the lettuce is gone. What else do I have? Lots of tomatoes, peppers, cucumbers, flowers. And then put a bird bath right in the middle to attract the birds, who also will snack on some bugs and bring the flowers that'll bring the pollinators. So this is one of my absolute favorite zinnias. Look at that color, look at that gradation. And let me show you a couple more. Look at this one, this is a new one for me. Another zinnia. These were all taken yesterday. Here's a close-up. Oh, the color on these, I just love going up there. This was as the sun was setting. It's got a nice variation there. So I've been working in the garden, and I have done a little bit, well, this was a couple weeks ago. I did start some sauerkraut, so I have that in the crock. And for my weight, I am using a gallon bag filled with water. So that does a couple things. I don't have weights, stone weights, so it weights it. And also because the water fills in the whole top of the crock, I don't have a problem with the mold. So of course that's when I started it. It is now down in our kind of not crawl space, it's a basement, but it's unfinished, so it's cool, surrounded, it's all cement, so it's dark, it's cool, and I check that every day. So that's what I've been working on, just around the, besides doing other work, but just in the yard, in the garden. So I have a shout out. I wanted to thank 2 tall stitchers. Wonderful YouTube channel, I'll put the link in there. But Carol and Jennifer, loved your video. I was flipping through FlossTube and saw this. And there they are, and look at the quilt. That is my patchwork illusion technique that I've taught for probably 30 plus years. So I had been at a guild, and I can't remember if it's Carol or Jennifer worked on that. She took the class. I did not write down which one it was, but she showed that quilt, and thank you so much for that. So that particular class is done with 3-dimensional cubes, and I brought just a couple of the quilts too. I'm gonna try holding it up here. It's gonna be a challenge because it's not gonna be small like my stitching. So, but I thought you might like to see it. So we do 3-dimensional cubes, and I talk about the color, the value, what type of fabric to use, and then we cut them out, sew them together, and then I show everyone in class all different ways to put them together. So here are 2 cubes. Hopefully you can see that. I will put a link to my webpage as well, so you can take a look at some of the quilts on the webpage. This one is fun. This is similar to what you saw on their YouTube channel with the blocks that have kind of a design or a wrapped package look. And that's all done with one of my gradated fabrics that I designed. See if I can reach that right here. This is one of them. This is a gradated batik that I designed. which sadly with fabric, sometimes they stay in print a long time, and that one did, as did this next one, but then they run their course, just like patterns. So this is another one I did. This is my Serendipity fabric line that I did with Troy Riverwoods. So what we did is we cut from each one of those gradations and then put the cubes together. So this one, I'll try to hold up. Hopefully you can see it. This is 4 cubes. Let's see if I stand up and hold it. So the one you saw on their video was also 4 cubes. So that's the Patchwork Illusions technique that I just love doing. Cubes with that. And if you're interested in that, I do have a CRAFTSY class that covers similar material. It's called New Direction in Tumbling Blocks. That's on CRAFTSY, so I'll put that link in there too. So any of you that are quilters and it's like, I want to know how to do that, the CRAFTSY class has a lot of that information. So let me show you one more thing, and then I'm going to insert the close-up camera to cover some questions. But in that close-up, I talk about using a little bit heavier weight thread. And this is by Sulky. These are 12 weight cotton Petites. Now this I bought from Amazon. I'll put the link in there. But this is a case that you can put, I think I added some of my own colors in here too. But this case, there we go. You can see how many colors you can fit. The case came with 80, and then I think I added some. And they're 50-yard spools. But this is excellent if you are doing something like a Lugana that maybe 25 count or 30 count, and you don't want to use 2 strands. This is excellent. So I want to show that because I couldn't show it on the camera. I just had a momentary, I thought my video had stopped, but it's still going. So what we're going to do now is I have a couple of questions that came up about things that I wanted to switch the camera view. So we're going to switch that, and we're going to take a look in this next section at counting pins. How do you use those? And also take a look at if you want to move from Aida to linen, what's the best way to do that? So I'll show that, and I also have another little video in there about stitching on linen. So I'm going to insert that here, and then I'll be back. For these next few questions we had from FlossTube 16, I'm going to switch to this camera, so I think you'll be able to see a little better. Rhonda had a question about stitching on Aida, moving to linen. What was the best way to do it? So here is something I did several years ago on Aida, and as we know, with Aida, you're going from hole to hole, and it's a pretty even weave. So if you want to switch to linen, what's the best way to do it? Well, a couple suggestions that I found helpful is to move from Aida, and this is an 18 count Aida, move to even weave or Lugana. That might be a good way to start. I'm going to just bring it close so you can see. On even weave, you can see, just like the name says, it's evenly woven, so it's a little bit easier to see the threads. Linen, by its nature, is created with flax, and here's a piece of linen, and it will have sometimes thinner threads, sometimes thicker, sometimes schlubs. So let me just show you the difference here. On the left is Lugana, on the right is linen. Now the Lugana that I have here is 25 count, it's cream Lugana. And then the linen is a 32 count Lakeside Linen Vintage Homespun. So I would say if you wanted to start with linen, start with a Lugana or an even weave. That would be helpful. And then if you want to switch to linen, start with the smaller count, not smaller, I'm sorry, larger. That also would help. You can see the difference between the two, 32 count, 25 count. So that would be helpful. And on Lugana, especially if you're doing a 25 count, you probably will need to do two threads, 2 strands. And that's one of the reasons myself personally, I like to use a higher count linen because I like to stitch with 1 strand. But let me show you, I think I can do this, something I found that might be helpful in stitching with 1 strand. Many of you may know about this. Sulky makes a cotton thread that is 12 weight, which works really well on counts like 25. So this is an assortment that I purchased on Amazon. I'll put the link to it. But I liked that I got all of the threads, a bunch of colors, and I'm just going to open this up. I'll hold this up when we move back to the other camera. But this might be an option for stitching on Lugana or even a lower count linen. You see lots of colors, and it's just a little bit thicker, and that might eliminate the need for 2 strands. Another option, which is what I did on my, let me set this out of the way. Another option would be, if you don't want to use 2 strands, is what I did on my stars, which I haven't worked on since the last video. But this is done with 1 strand, but it's done with dinky dye, which is a little bit thicker silk. So here's the color here. You can see really good coverage. Let me move it up so you can see. Here's the houses. Love those houses. Good coverage, just with 1 strand. So if you want to use silk, dinky dye would be a good option. And I just put it on floss drops, but it does come in a strand. Boy, those are looking kind of worn here. I should have straightened about. Let me just, there, that looks pretty. But anyway, dinky dye would be an option. So those are some suggestions for starting, or switching, I should say, moving from linen, or let me rephrase that, moving from Aida going to linen. And I did have a comment which I thought was really good from a viewer last time. She appreciated the waist knot demo that I did, and she said it squashed her fears, because as she watched me do that, she thought, well, it's very similar to stitching on Aida. And that is correct. There's a little bit of a difference, but once you get going on it, I found it just kind of was second nature. So I did want to show you 2 more demos. Let me move this out of the way. I wanted to show you, and can I get this? Nope. All right. I'm going to switch. I might be able to do this. About how to use the counting pins. When I showed them last time, did I have a demo? And Sharon asked that. What do you do with a counting pin? Well, let's say I need to move over here or need to move over here, and I could count it. But what the counting pins do is, especially if I have to say move 30, let's say I need to move 30 over here. So I can count the threads. Let's say I do the first 10, put a pin in. And I guess you could also tip it downwards, but I usually just do that. And then I can move over to the next 10. And then I can, it's like leapfrog, move it over here and count again my next 10. So then I don't lose count. And I will show you, I actually don't count on top. What I do is I move, put this counting pin or the needle underneath, and when I move it, I'm actually counting the threads this way. So I'm just doing a couple at a time as I go over. And the little cheat that I do is I'll make a little hole and then I'll flip over here to get in that hole. So that's what the counting pins do. It helps you keep track as you're moving along. Just think of it as you're leapfrogging over to the next one. And the other thing you could do if you don't want to move this is you could just take a needle and do the same thing. Just count and then put the pin in where you need to. So that's a little demo on counting pins. And I want to show you, let me see if I can do that. Oh, we can get nice and close. Just to show you stitching on linen. Lovely. Let me see if I can do this so it is very clear. It is focusing. All right, so if I'm stitching, and I'm going to try to keep my fingers out of the way, if I'm stitching on linen, I'm moving over 2 threads. I'm going to try to move down. All right, it's a little clearer down here, so I'm actually going to try stitching there just for a minute to show you. For some reason, it's blurry up here, so let me just try. Down here, this is not where my stitches go, but I want to see if I can get it really clear for you. Well, I don't know if you just heard that, but we have a mine, like M-I-N-E. We live on a hill, and several miles away is a mine, and occasionally they will blast, and that's what that was. Is it 11 o'clock? So for a while, every day they blasted at 11. So I don't know if you just heard that. It was not an earthquake. It was a blast. All right, so what I just did is I'm counting 2 threads. I'm doing it very slow. So now I like to use either the eye of my needle or the tip, and I'm just going to drag. I don't know if you heard that tick, tick. That's just my little check that I'm going over to. Pretty soon you'll be able to see the hole, and you can see it's right there. I'm hoping you can see this. It seems to be pretty clear right there. So anyway, that's the difference in doing linen. You're just counting over 2. See if you can listen for that. Let me do one more. Let's say I need to skip a couple. So let's just skip 2. So there's 1. And by skip 2, I mean we are counting 2 threads. That counts as 1. There's 2. Now, I'll just drag my needle. Do another one, go over 2. By 2, I just mean 2 threads. So that essentially is how I stitch on linen. hoping you're able to see that. I'll be showing this work in progress shortly when we go back to the full camera, but did want to show you that. Let me just check my notes. I have one more thing to show you. Bring this up while we're at the close-up camera. I've been talking with Lisa at Little Annie's, and I will link her FlossTube. And we have been talking about Feast of Friendship. Do you remember the foxy linen that I showed? And Feast of Friendship was one of the designs I was actually contemplating on this linen. I'm still pondering it, but I wanted to show you the flosses because Lisa had asked about a linen she had and would it work. And so I thought, well, the best thing to do is pull the floss. So here I have all the called for, and I think these are all Gentle Art Classic Color Works. So here they are. I'm just going to spread them out so you can see them, because I'm deciding, let me go in alphabetical order here. I'm deciding, are they going to work? And some of that will be done as I'm stitching. But here it is, blue corn. Then we have brandy, burnt orange, caramel corn. Now, this one I'm not a fan of on this linen. This is a red orange. This is an orange. They clash a little bit. It's only used right there. So that can be decided as I get to that. I might change it. I might leave it because it's just a little bit. Caramel corn, let's see. Corn husk so far, other than this one. I'm going to pull that one out. I'm liking how these look. This one's awfully bright. But again, it could just be a touch here and there. I'm not seeing. It might be right here. So that one might be a maybe as well to change. Endive. Ginger snap. I was wondering about that, but ginger snap looks good on there. This one is Grecian gold. Heirloom gold, which is kind of a brown. Mulberry. Still looking good. Purple, old purple paint. That is luscious on here. So that's something to think about. I mentioned, again, maybe tweaking the border, and maybe I tweak the vine into a green, and maybe that little bit, maybe into that purple. I'm not sure. Here's where the purple's used. So that's something I'll be thinking about. Let's keep going. Parchment, piney woods. No, I thought these were in alphabetical order. I guess they're not. This one is pumpkin pie. This one, I believe, is what the pumpkin is used, and it's outlined in Grecian gold. I mentioned her to Lisa. I'm puzzled about, kind of not puzzled, wondering about that. So that one I'll continue to think about. Let's continue. Rose Garden, sarsaparilla. Oh, I know why these aren't in alphabetical order. I had to go to the store and buy a couple of these, and I just put them on. Here's tarnished gold. So on the pumpkin pie is surrounded by tarnished gold. So that might work. Why I'm puzzled about why it might not is, as I mentioned, this is a red orange. This is orange. They're analogous on the color wheel, but I'm concerned that it might just not look good. I'm not sure. I've got to kind of play with that a little bit more, or get started and see how it looks. Tin bucket, which is wonderful on there. Toffee, uniform blue. I think those are in the house. Wood rose and ye old gold. So those are the colors, which are really quite beautiful. And thinking about this linen, which again, red-orange. The complement of red-orange on the color wheel is blue-green, which is teal. So I pulled a teal. This is Brethren Blue. And I love how that looks on this linen. So that might be a substitution for one of these that I'm puzzled about. Not the pumpkin. I wouldn't do the pumpkin in teal, although I'm not sure. Maybe the words. See, this is how when I'm changing colors on a quilt or on a project, how I kind of think it through. Think of the base, think of the colors, think of the complements, what's across from it, which in this case would be what is the complement of the linen. So if I want to add the complement in a floss, and also think of the analogous colors. I'm just looking to see if my color wheel is within reach that I can grab it quickly. Let me see if I can get it very quickly. All right, here it is. This is one that I've had for years. What I like is because you can twist it and actually lay the color. This is red-orange. It's kind of along this color. So if you look at the analogous colors, let's see, key color is red-orange, or red-orange for the linen. The complement or the contrast is blue-green, which is close to this Brethren Blue, kind of in between there. So the analogous colors are right in here. And the purple, mentioned how beautiful the purple looked. Well, it's because it's analogous. These oranges, yellow oranges, even red are what we see in here. So really it does play right into the color wheel when we're looking at these colors. So Lisa, as far as what I'm considering, that's kind of where I'm looking at to use this linen as the base for this pattern, this chart with these colors. So I'm kind of tied up with some of the other projects, but I'm going to lay this out so that I see it, and I might just give it a start. I know the house is going to look stunning. Where I'm pondering about changing is maybe in the border, maybe the pumpkin, maybe that. So that's what I'm kind of thinking about. I mentioned too the roof, and the roof is, just had these pulled. I think it's tarnished gold. I think it might be some of these, which I wondered if they'd blend in too much, and they're not. I'm not sure those are the exact ones, but they're not blending in, which was my other concern. Will they look nice or will they clash? This is one I'm really not sure of. Kind of blends in. So that's that little bit right here. So I might change that. But this looks good. So for that roof, might not need to change it. So that's one of those things, just if you're changing your linen, things to think about. So I hope that was helpful, and we are now going to move back to the other camera angle. Well, I hope you enjoyed that little demo, and what's interesting is it's 3 hours after I stopped the other video because I had a phone call and some other things that came up, and I thought, oh, just do all that because then I can come back to you and not be so harried as I felt before, because I was trying to get it all done before the phone call. But before I forget, I did want to mention on the last floss tube, I mentioned a refrigerator pickle recipe that several of you ask about. If you go to FlossTube 16 and look in the descriptions, that's where I put it. So it's there for you, all written down. So I had forgotten to mention that when I was showing you the garden pictures, so I wrote that down. Well, I want to show you the WIPS that I have and a little bit of haul. Here's my book of days, which is really helpful because then I could see exactly what I worked on between the last floss tube 2 weeks ago. So here you can see I've got a few stickers in it. I'm gonna add a couple more, I think. So it's been very handy because I think I'm actually going to turn it to what my starts are. So when I talk about the linen and my WIPS, I have it there. So I have 2 things that I worked on while since the last floss tube. Here's the first one. Here's my project bag. This is by Joyful Stitching. I love this one. So this is the one I've been working on most recently. It is, let's see if I can do this without glare. Plum Street Live on Little. I love this. I just love it. It's summer here. It's like a perfect summer stitch. It makes me feel like I am sitting by the beach, by a lake, stitching. I love it. So I am using, check my notes, 40 count, and it's not written down unless it's on the second page. Yes, there it is. I'm using 40 count Lakeside vintage marine white, which I thought was good because marine white and it's kind of a nautical theme. I'm using mostly the called for linen. So let me show you. Show you what I changed and then I'll show it to you. So here are the called for, mostly DMC with a little bit of Classic Colorworks and Weeks. And I'm going to show you the floss drop. I love this. This is by Sampling of Memories. Little boat. Just love that whale because it's perfect for this. So here are the colors. Let me just give them a twist here. There's a lot of them. Look how beautiful they are. I love that. I made 2 changes. So let me show you the changes, then I'll show you what I did. We have the church, which since I'm using the white, the called for just didn't show up. So I changed it to Pebble Beach and Lexington Green. So you'll see that in just a minute. So those I changed. So it's the church that changed and the steeple. And then there are some birds. And again, they were lighter, did not show up on the linen. So I changed the birds to Weeks Dye Work, Spanish Moss, and Chai. So here are the ones I changed to. And also the steeple, the cross on the church, I used the Chai, which is this one. Because it just didn't, the white or the light it was called for just did not show up. So here it is, and I'm kind of all over the place. I started at the border, right up here, and you can see I got impatient. Make sure you can see. Yes, I got impatient, so I started doing the border and then just kept going until I could, actually I did the top and then I did the side so I could come over and do the church. And then I went over and I started doing the house. Have 2 of the lines of the verse done. Here you can see the bird that I changed. So we got the bird and the flag done. There are some more birds that'll go there. Look at the church. I just love how that shows up. I started with the called for, it just didn't show up. I love, love, love the house. You can see I've just got it started. And then I started worrying because I had a yard of this and I cut it in half after measuring twice. I cut it in half because I needed half a yard, and then I started worrying, oh, and I kept measuring, thinking it has to be right, it has to be right. So a couple nights ago, I thought I'm going to continue down this side to the bottom to make sure that I have enough. And you can see, I do. And I knew I had enough over here on this side, but it was the bottom I was worried about. So here it is. I'm just gonna stand up so I can see what you're seeing. I just love, love, love it. So that's what I've been working on, Live on Little. I mean, I've said it already, I can't tell you how much I am enjoying this stitch. And I've left some of the fill in. You can see right down in here, I've left some of the fill in because I'm going to be going to a couple of stitching groups this week, and I can just sit and stitch. Same with the roof. So that's why you see some of it not done, because I got it outlined, and then I can just sit and stitch, because I don't do real well counting and chatting. So I would rather just do fill in. So that is my Live on Little, which I'm going to continue working on today, probably all through next week too, I think. I just love it. The other thing I'm working on is, showed you this last time, this is Hannah Campbell by Hands Across the Sea. Gorgeous, gorgeous. This was one of those, and I told you last time, I was a little nervous about it because it just looks intimidating. But here's what I found. I'm not doing the whole thing at once. I am doing a little section at a time. And just like when I do a complicated knitting pattern, you look at the whole pattern and it's like, I can't figure it out. But if you look at one line at a time of a knitting pattern, it makes sense because you're just doing that. Same thing with this. This is the stitch along I mentioned, where we took this and it's divided into 15 sections. Very doable. So I worked on the first part. Second part is in here, and I'll show you that in a minute. I am using, and I did not bring them over, I'm using the called for silks. I showed that last time. And I changed the linen that's called for, and I'm not going to be able to find it real quick. I think it might be sand dune. Yes, vintage sand dune. That's what it's called for. I did not do that. I changed it to Just the Ticket. I'm looking at my notes here. Tabby Cat, Just the Ticket, which is beautiful. So the original is just a little bit more yellow, but I love how the colors are showing up. So here's what I've got. So I did a little bit more here, started coming down here, added this and this. Still will probably this month finish this and this. I'm missing an over one bird here, and I'm missing some over one here because I have ordered the Soie, which is a little thinner, to do the over one, and it's not in yet. So that's fine. There's plenty to do. So you can see I've got kind of this section done here. Let's hold it up again. Just so pretty. So don't be intimidated when you see something very complex, because I am just taking it a section at a time. And I was really nervous about, look at this motif around here. I don't know why. Maybe it just looked so complex, but I want to show you a close-up. It's so much fun to do. I just started and kept going. So next month I'll talk about why I have 2 needle minders, and I'll do a little demo on that. But that is Hannah Campbell that I'm working on. I've got it in my tomato bag by Stitch Folks, which I love this bag. I'm so happy that I got it. And I wanted to mention too, Hands Across the Sea. What you can order charts from them. You can order the PDFs of several, quite a few of their charts. But I wanted to mention, when you go on their website, let's say you wanted to look at Hannah Campbell. It's available as the chart. It's available as the PDF. But you can go on there and look at that specific pattern or chart, and you can look at the linen sizes. So no matter what size you're thinking about doing, it shows you that. It also shows you the thread legend. So you can see the silks, you can see the DMC. Here you can see it's listing the same thing that's on the back of the pattern. So you can see that before you purchase. And one of the best things about it, I think, is they also have a stitch guide for each sampler. So you can click on that and you can see, are there specialty stitches used? If there are, you can see what they are. And then there are also tutorials. So you can see what the stitch is that's used and how to do it. It's a fantastic website, so be sure to check that out. Hands Across the Sea, which I'm sure most of you already have, but I guess I didn't really pay attention to the fact that not only are the threads listed and the linen sizes, but the stitch guide. That was very helpful. So I'll put a link to that in the website or in the description as well. So I have just a tiny little bit of haul because I am going to be going to Hobby House in September, and so I'm saving my money for that. And two, I have so many things kitted up that I want to work on. So, you know, Live on Little was one of those. I am really resisting the temptation to start something new because I really want to work on these two. I've got the stars that I showed you just a little bit ago that I need to work on. Not need to, I want to. And that's the difference. What do we want to do? There are so many things that regulate our lives. And I am not going to do it with stitching. I'm going to do what I feel like working on that day, or even morning tonight or afternoon tonight. And I am enjoying that so much. So I want to show you the haul that I got. I ordered some charts from Colorado Cross Stitch, and this is new by Brenda Juve with Thy Needle and Thread, A Girl in Her Garden. I ordered that. It's done as a drum. I don't know if I'll do it as a drum, but there it is, there. So I've got that, and I saw that after watching Sherry on Colorado Cross Stitch, Colorado Cross Stitcher. I'll put a link in the description for that. And she also mentioned that there is a witch in her garden by Brenda Juve. So I ordered that at the same time. And here's, I just love, look at the pumpkins. So I ordered both of those charts. Will I start soon? I don't know, but I have them, so I'm all set. I also ordered some stickers, which I ordered 2 sets. This one has all different cross stitch, different stickers to go in my book of days. Look at those. So I ordered that, and then I ordered one with coffee, which actually, when I finish this, I'm going to get a coffee. I'm so excited. Any of you that like coffee know how that feels when you look at the clock and you think, it's not too late. I can have one more cup of coffee. So I'm going to do that. And actually, I'm probably going to have a cappuccino is what I'm going to do. So it won't be that much caffeine. So, and then I ordered coffee stickers talking about coffee. So I ordered those stickers. So that's what I got from Colorado Cross Stitcher. And then I have a new linen club, Fox and Rabbit Linen Club by Gayron Stitchery. I think that's correct. This is one of those linens like Foxy. I love it. Now, I don't know what to do on it. So if you have, and I'm going to show you in a second, if you have a thought, go, oh, that'd be perfect on this chart, put it in the comments, and then next time I will show everyone. This is called Kryptonite. I mean, I gasp when I open it up. It is stunning. Let me check and see how the color, look at that. Oh, I designed Petites for the quilting industry for many years, and this is just gorgeous. It reminds me of a batik. So this is Kryptonite Fox and Rabbit. I am at a loss what to use it for. And it's going to be, at first, one of those I just look at and enjoy looking at it. But do you have an idea? Is there a chart that you've seen or you remember that comes to your mind? We did this with Foxy, and it was quite fun to hear your suggestions, and then I showed them the next time. So if there's an idea for a kind of a teal linen, let me know. And then I have one more piece of haul. It is, now I went to our local cross-stitch shop, which I say local, it's an hour from me, and they do framing. So I took the Quaker Dwelling over there to be framed, and I took pictures of what I was thinking of, but I'm not going to show you yet. I'll show you the finished one, and it could be a month, just depending on how long it takes for the frame wood to come in. But when I was over there, of course, you have to look, and I did pick up, if you remember, in one of my first floss tube in the car, I talked about getting threads, purchasing a little bit at a time. I'm trying to fill out my like Weeks or Gentle Arts or Classic Colorworks, trying to fill out to have the entire selection, which is very expensive to do all at once. So I'm doing 10 or 20 colors at a time. So I did purchase a couple more letters of the alphabet of the Gentle Arts. So I already put those away. So I did get those. But then I was looking around, and she had, and this is at the Country Cupboard in Murfreesboro, she had some R&R linen. I think it's the only piece she had. It's 40 count vanilla bean. It's gorgeous. So I picked up half a yard. I'm going to hold it up, and then I'll hold a piece of vintage country mocha with it so you can see it. This has got just the smallest amount of aging to it. So it looks, I'm trying to find a spot that I can show you where it really shows up. It just looks aged without much modeling. That's blowing it out. Let's look right about there. And I'm going to show you with the vintage country mocha. So here's vintage country mocha. So this is Vanilla Bean by R&R. You can see that's pretty good. So it's just kind of a creamy, it's not buttery, it's not yellow, it's just a good, very light tan. So I was very excited to see that, and I think she had a yard, and I purchased half of it. So Vanilla Bean by R&R. So I think that I'm just, because now I have buried my notes of what I was going to talk to you about. I want to make sure we've covered everything. I will put links in the description for most of what I've talked about, so you can click on it and be taken directly to websites or FlossTubes or Instagram or anything I talked about. I think that might be it for today. I want to thank you for joining me. I love your comments. I am, as I said before, I am honored that you're with me here, and I feel like we're having a conversation when you put comments in, because I can answer them, we can chat. Sometimes I'll have several chats with people in the comments. You can go back and take a look at those, but I enjoy that so much, and I want to thank you for joining me. Your support by clicking that thumbs up button, huge. Your support with comments just really means a lot. And I want to thank you, because there are many amazing floss tubers, and I watch them too. And when I see on my subscriptions that little highlight that there's a new episode, it's like, oh, yay! And I get my stitching and I get all settled and I just enjoy it. It feels like I'm sitting across the table at a stitch group with my best friends. And that's why I consider all of you my my stitching buddies. Some of you are my quilting buddies too. But I want to thank you for that. So I'm rambling now and I'm thinking I'm going to go get some coffee. So I want to thank you again for joining me. I should be back in 2 weeks, might be 3, just depending. It's been a crazy 2 weeks here. I'm hoping things calm down, but it's just how things go sometimes. So if the tomatoes start coming in, I may be 3 weeks, just depends. But that's it for today. FlossTube 17. Thank you again. And until next time, happy stitching and be well.